So it's not really a kit review, it's not really a kit video, it's more a concept, if you will. So layering, it seems very simple, and in reality it is, but just to give you a couple of ideas. So sort of what I'm wearing and then what I can add as extra layers. So basically what I'm wearing is, to start off with, I've got my combat boots, and underneath that I've got 2 pairs of socks. Then coming up from that I've got my trousers, and I've got my base layer. It's not a merino base layer. That's one of the areas where I'm going to look at investing. You know, investing in your kit is something that's really advisable. You know, you can if you listen to Trial by Fire, it's a really great podcast. Joe and Porrig, one of the things that they say is basically invest in your clothing, because you can have the best knife in the world, you can have the best backpack in the world, your clothing is rubbish, then all you're going to do is get cold, wet, miserable, and put yourself in harm's way. So invest in your clothing, invest in your kit, basically. Moving up, got trousers, got a base layer, which is just it's a wool base layer. It's not merino, it's quite a cheap base layer, but that's one of the areas I'm looking at investing in, is get myself a decent base layer this winter. Moving up from there, I have my combat trousers, they're actually builder's trousers. They're made by Dickies. They're all right as a round camp trouser. For walking and things like that, they're a little bit heavy. They're not waxed trousers. They're not like your full Ravens and stuff like that, where it's waxed cotton. They're not really waterproof, but I do carry a waterproof layer. Going up from there, I've got my base top, which is wicking runners material. It's nylon. It's designed to basically stop me getting too sweaty in the summer. It's just as a sort of a basic layer in the winter. As I say, I'm looking at getting a decent merino base. And then on top of that, I've got my Swanndri shirt, which is a really good heavy wool shirt, the Swanndri Ranger. You can still get these made in New Zealand. Something I found out through speaking to Swanndri, they still make these in New Zealand. They also make them in China. You have the option. You can pay a little bit more and have it made in New Zealand. You can pay a little bit less and have it made in China. Choice is yours. So that's an option. I'm not going to say I like them, because I think my opinion shouldn't matter. But for me, they're not a heavy wool shirt. I'd say they're not a light wool shirt. They're intermediate. When they're damp, they still work. They keep heat close to your body, and that's what with the layering idea. So going back to layering, you're trying to trap pockets of air. Basically, the idea is if you can trap air against your body, that keeps heat in. If you can trap air between layers, that keeps heat there. So basically, you're trying to stop this heat escaping. And as you'll see, you've got the fire going behind me. One of my most recent discussions was about, why is fire in the survival triangle? Can it be negated by other things? It's one of the ideas that I'm exploring. Can fire be got round? Because fire, I think, is one of the hardest things to achieve outside. If it's absolutely throwing it down, fire is really hard to achieve. My fire's going behind me, but it wasn't as easy as just boom, there it is. It takes a little bit of work. So yeah, so going back to our other layers, and this is where I'm going to turn the camera around and place it so that you can see. So basically, working up again, got my waterproof trousers. I have braces on mine because my hips are basically non-existent, so that they slip down all the time. So I wear braces to keep them up. It's just a thing of I hate having to hitch my trousers up all the time. Hence why I wear a belt. I wear braces on my over trousers. They're a nylon over trouser. I would love to have some Ventile ones, some Ventile working trousers, and I think that's where my end objective is to be. Is you can get Ventile working trousers. My smock is Ventile. I'll get to that in a second. But what I have then is I have a fleece lined soft shell. So it's made by Snugpak. It packs up really small, it throws in my bag. You know, it's got that fine fleece in there, traps heat, which is what you want in cold weather. It's an extra layer that I can throw on, that's semi-waterproof. It's got a bit of waterproofing to it. Nowhere near as waterproof as my Ventile, but as a backup layer, it's absolutely brilliant. For what it weighs, for what I need to carry it, it weighs virtually nothing. By comparison to, you know, carrying a big heavy over jacket. So we'll move that out of the way. I've then got my Kestrel smock, which is made by Country Innovation. Now this is where, when I say about investing in your clothes, this is one of my big investments. Ventile isn't cheap, but Ventile, it works really well. It's a cotton fabric, and it's actually, the history of Ventile, it was designed for air crews. So the idea was that air crews ditching into cold water wanted something that would keep heat trapped against their body even in cold, wet conditions. So that's exactly what Ventile does. As it gets wet, it absorbs moisture, then it basically acts as a barrier. So it absorbs a certain amount of moisture, it becomes saturated, and it acts like a barrier. So the heat stays in, the water stays virtually out. I mean, this thing, Country Innovation tell me, is rated to a hydrostatic head of 10,000 mils. 10,000 millimeters. So yeah, I really like it. Again, my opinion shouldn't matter, but it's one of those where before I bought it, I tried it out, I tested it, borrowed, basically had a quick go at somebody else's. On a really wet weekend, and to be honest, it really works. It isn't cheap, but it's one of those jackets where I go, I feel I've invested well. It's, you know, I've had Gore-Tex jackets in the past. The problem is, around the fire, when I'm working by fires, you know, you get singe holes and stuff like that. This thing, I've had it nearly 3 years, and it's virtually as good as the day I bought it. So yeah, so then working on sort of accessorising, I've got my merino wool hat. If you can get merino, get merino, and you can get merino really cheap. You don't have to spend a lot. Aldi and Lidl sell merino wool, base layers and stuff. This is a really nice hat, wool hat, really warm, like incredibly warm. And then I team that up with my shemagh. What I like about my shemagh is that it acts as a plug. So the idea is that what I'm doing is I'm plugging that gap round my neck so warm air can't escape as easily. The whole game of layers is trapping as much warm air close to your body as possible. You know, the same theory with sleeping bags, with underquilts on your hammock, stuff like that. It's get that heat and pin it to your body. Don't let it go, and hold on to it for as long as possible. The other game of layers is in the summer when it's absolutely sweltering hot. Is what you want to do is you want to get rid of that heat as quick as possible. So you take layers off, you open up. That's what I like about the Kestrel smock, is that you can actually open up the sides on it, so you don't have to stop walking. You know, if you're in the rain, it still keeps you dry, but it keeps you cool as well. So you can crack the sides of these. They're baffled on the inside so that it doesn't lose heat through the zips, but you can slide the zips open and go, right, okay, I'm going to start losing heat now. Really nice taped seams, and that way, so you can lose heat, you can keep heat in, you can do what you want with it. And then finally is my hands. So what I have is I have my working gloves, which are a pair of leather gloves. They're unlined, so they've got no nylon lining in them. The idea is that I can use these round a fire, so I can carry hot stuff with them. They're not going to melt to my hands. And then what I have is I have a pair of liner gloves. What I've just invested in, and I'm not allowed them yet, they are, but what I'm hoping to be getting for Christmas is a pair of really heavy wool. They're made by Dachstein. Pair pair of really heavy wool mittens, and I'm actually getting a set of over mittens made so that they're going to be waxed cotton so that they stay pretty well waterproof as well, for when I'm out in the winter and I'm not actually, I'm going to turn the camera around so I can talk to you now. They're for when I'm out and I'm not actually working, but if I'm having to walk between bits of the site, or when I'm sitting, when I'm resting, the idea is that they allow me to keep heat in my body, but they're not working gloves. The idea is that they're there to retain heat when it's cold, as opposed to protect me from heat when it's hot, like my working gloves are. But my working gloves are still another layer. I'm still able to put 2 layers on my hands to trap heat, so I can keep the heat in them woolen gloves. They're like a woolen nylon blend. Keep them inside my working gloves, and then that way it allows me to trap heat against my body. So yeah, a little bit on layers. If you've got any more questions about any of the other kit, by all means let me know. I'll try and answer them the best I can. It's not really a gear review. It's more about getting across how layers work. If you want any, to be honest, I'm not reviewing any of the gear here today. I'm simply saying, I bought it because I liked it. I had to try it first. I get on with it. Some people prefer other items. By all means, a lot of gear comes down to personal preference and what you're using it for. But yeah, I would say invest heavily in your gear. Invest heavily, especially in your clothing. When you're looking at, do I need a new knife or do I need a new jacket, I'd always go for a jacket. I'd always say look at it as a long-term investment, not a short-term quick purchase. Don't go out and go, well, I'm going out this weekend and I need a jacket. Do I go out and buy a 50 quid one that might last me next 12 months, or do I buy, spend 200-300 quid on Ventile that might last me 10 years? And that's where you've got to weigh up it. I mean, if you can't spend the money on Ventile, don't go out without a jacket. Get a jacket. But if you can, invest that money. As a lot of the guys have said, a decent jacket, if you look at it as pints in the pub, it's probably not much money in the pub. A few weeks worth of drinking, you've got yourself a jacket that's going to last you the next 10 years. But yeah, so if you've got any questions, fire away. I'll try and answer them as best I can. All right, and I will speak to you soon. Cheers, bye.